Hello and welcome to another Simple Index instructional video. Today we're talking about duplicate page detection, sort of a new feature in Simple Index, and most of the content on this comes from the Simple Index wiki, which has all kinds of information, basically serves as the modern manual for Simple Index these days. And you can access that under the support tab on any page on the Simple Index website. So duplicate detection, we're trying to find where a page has already been scanned and now a second version of that page has been scanned in for some reason, and we don't want both copies in our archive or what have you. And traditionally, this is more a feature of enterprise level applications. It's kind of a higher end feature, but we do have this ability now in Simple Index to do kind of a different version of it. And in those big applications, you would find that the file essentially receives a unique digital fingerprint, and then if it sees that same fingerprint again, it means the file has been repeated. But that only applies when it's literally like the same file has been brought in, the same PDF or whatever it might be. But what if we were talking this started on paper and somebody's just scanned it a second time, and so now it has a separate digital fingerprint even though the content of the page is exactly the same? So from there you could move on to something where it compares content to content, like running the page through a database of the content of the previous documents. But that'll take tons of time per page because it's reading every word on the page and comparing it to an index that might have all those same words in that same order. So we've developed a process where we can actually look on the document for, in this case we're pulling out 3 terms, but in this case we're doing it in kind of a specific way. We're looking for certain terms on the page or certain words of a certain length and at a certain position. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But what this has to do is basically we're going to run single page images because we want to look at the full text OCR of every single page as we go through. So we're going to run single images into it and capture those specific keywords, and we'll talk more about how those are structured. And we're going to store those in a database. And then the next time something comes in, we just look on the page and we capture those same 3 keywords, and if they correspond to some 3 keywords that we've already got in our database, then we know we might have a duplicate. If the 3 keywords for that document are unique to that document, well then it just goes on and it gets saved out to our archive and becomes another one of the pages that's now sitting there waiting for the next round to be compared to it. So let's take a look at how all of that is done. So let's pop Simple Index open here. And we've got this dupe detection job pulled up here, and if we look at the settings, a couple of things we need to be aware of. We do want to, if we have multi-page files, we want to split them because we are looking at single pages in this case. And also on our file output, we want to have those pages still stay separately as we output them so that each page gets its own set of keywords. If we combine them into one file, just that one file would have keywords. In other words, there'll only be keywords stored in our database for the last page of the whole batch, because that's the only record that will be written. So also we have a database going on here. So in the case of this job, we're just simply going to an Access database to keep it simple, but you could do this with SQL or other systems as well. And we're also, one of the key components here is we have to put the output file field to this image path. So basically the output file field stored in the database is the path of the files that we're saving out when the Simple Index job runs, and that's how this is able to work. And then in our indexing and file naming, we actually are we're including a document type here. This part's kind of arbitrary. This is just what do we want to use to name the file. So we're doing it as a document type this time, and then we're using a couple of other fields. We're doing a batch ID, which is unique to every time Simple Index is run, there's a new batch ID created, and then we're doing an auto number. And those things just make sure that if we run some more files with the same document type, they'll still end up with unique file names when they go out, because the batch ID is always unique every single time the Simple Index job runs. And then here's kind of where the magic is happening in terms of figuring out whether we have duplicates or not. We have an OCR field. It's using Full-Page OCR, and we're grabbing those terms that are going to go together and become essentially the keys we look at to compare later scans to and see if we have a match. So what it's doing in this case, we've created this template shorthand here called %DUP ID, %. And what that's doing is there's really a regular expression behind that that is finding the third 7-letter word on the page, the fourth 5-letter word on the page, and then the first 6-letter word on the page, but coming from the end. So we start at the bottom of the page for that third category of the 6-letter word, and we come up there. So, and the idea is when you put those 3 terms together and store them in a database, you've kind of pulled something unique off of that page, because what are the odds that the next page you scan has the exact same third 7-letter word on it, and so on. So this is kind of how we're creating a unique identifier without having to look at the full text. We can just compare to this little phrase that we've captured. And then we have in our autofill, it brings in that match value, which is going to be those 3 terms that it's read off the page that are combined as a single phrase with dashes in between them. And then it compares that to the match field column back in our database, and when it finds a result, it will put the path to the current file that's already in the archive in this possible duplicate field, so it can notify the operator that, hey, if you go look at this file right here, that very much could match the one that we're looking at on the screen right now as we're running the batch. So let's give that a try. Finish out of here, and we'll note that on the OCR we are doing full-page OCR. That's critical for this as well. And then let's go ahead and save out of this. Yes. And I'm going to run it right now. And the samples we're using here are just, you've probably seen them in other demonstration videos. We just have some invoices that are kind of generic that we use for a lot of our videos. But it works just as well here. But this could also be documents like contracts that have, just pages and pages of covered in text. But here we're using something that's a little more sparse in terms of text, but it still works. We're still finding the 7-letter word, the 6-letter word, and the 5-letter word in those, different positions on the page. So let's run it. And it's going to bring in the files that are in the input folder. There's 12 of them there. And then it's going to spend a little time on each one, just kind of doing that full-page OCR and extracting the 3 values. So if we look at this first one here, we've got, and we would just put in a document type. So, I'm just going to put in test for the sake of our demo here. And there's our batch ID and our document separator counter that are just, again, fixed fields. So those are just in gray because we can't edit those. And then the match value that it's found. So here, the first time it ran across that, it was probably on a line somewhere in the grid in this document, and that is why we're getting some junk characters there. But that's fine, because we're still getting the other 2 characters. And also, if there was another page that's identical, might well have the same layout with the lines and would kind of pick up the same random characters by the OCR. So we can save that one. And let's just, so if we look here at the next one, this one actually kind of worked in a little more understandable way. So we've got a 7-letter word, a 5-letter word, and a 6-letter word. And again, this is the third occurrence of a 7-letter word. This is the 4th occurrence of a 5-letter word, and actually the 3rd occurrence of a 6-letter word, but starting at the bottom of the page and reading up. So it gives you, it's not a random sampling, obviously, but it is more random than just capturing the first occurrence of each of those sized words, which could very likely repeat from documents, especially if the documents have kind of a consistent header. If they had some information on the top of the page, invoice and the company names and things like that, then certainly you would run into the same words very early on. So this is why we've chosen to look for the 3rd, 4th, and 3rd again keywords. We have a couple blank pages in here, and we'll just go ahead and delete those real quick so they won't end up in our final batch. There we go. And we'll just go ahead and do a save all here, so it'll take all of that and save everything out. And there we have it. So if we go look at the output folder here, we can see that we have the files we just ran here. And there's also some other files in here from when this was run earlier, but not going to affect what we're doing. And so those are the 10 pages that we saved out. And you can see there's a -001 through a -0010 on them right now. So if I go to my input folder here, I'll go up a level and go to input. And what we'll do in this case is we'll get rid of these because that batch is already run. Normally of course, this would be cleared out of your input folder, but since we're just doing this as more of a demonstration, we allow it to leave the files behind. But in this case, I am going to remove them. So we'll get rid of those. And then we've got, out on the desktop actually, we've got a few files that we'll just put into the input folder and run those against our existing database. So let me copy those, and I'll go back to my folders here, paste them in. There we are. So now we're going to, so in the scenario that we're really envisioning here, we've scanned that first batch of 10 pages and copy their matching pairs, or matching trios, I guess. And then we're going to, now we're running another batch of scans. And so as this new content comes in, we're comparing it to what we just scanned before. And this just keeps growing. So if these pages aren't duplicates, then that's great. We'll just put those into the database and into the output folder, and we'll have more to compare against. So the next batch compares against now 13 files instead of the 10 that we just did, and so on. And let's take a look at the database real quick. We'll pull that up. And again, it's in Microsoft Access. Let's just refresh here. So there's the match field, so those 3-word terms that were for each document. And then we have the image path, which is just where they were stored. So this is the file name, and then we also have the full text stored away in the database here as well. And so when this job runs, it finds the 3-word pairs, the 3-word groupings, I guess is a more appropriate term, on the page, and compares it to this column right here in the database. So if it runs across another document that has account Susan Person in those positions on the page, it assumes we might have a duplicate, and it's going to put the path to that file in our possible duplicate field, and we'll see that in just a second. And that way, and then the operator can just go to where the files are stored, look at the file that's referenced over there in that blank, and see if in fact it is a match, and then choose not to save this particular file out. So let's go back here to Simple Index. We're going to run it with those new files in there. And again, we're just doing the Full-Page OCR, and it goes and looks for its terms. And you can see we have over here, and it's saying that we do have a possible duplicate. So, and this is just referencing the output folder, but this could be anywhere that you're storing your files long term. So I could now go to that output folder and look at the exact file name that it's specifying for me here, open that file up, compare it to what I'm seeing here in Simple Index, and determine if it is in fact a duplicate. And you can see in this case, we've set it up in such a way that yes, all 3 of them are duplicates, finding the same words. We actually ran the exact same invoices in here through again, just files 1, 2, and 3. But what that lets me do is I realize that, oh, this job, these are all duplicates. I can just cancel this job. I don't want to save them into my archive. So we could just end this job. Or if you had a situation where just certain ones were appearing as duplicates, you could, of course, just flag those for deletion. So let's say we're doing 2 of them here, and it turns out that we're going to accept this one. It wasn't a full-on duplicate, just coincidentally had some things there. So I could just save the index here, save the last one. Right, I didn't put a document type in. Let's go test again. We'll save that. And now we can release that batch. There we are. And if we look at the database now, again, we'll refresh it. We added 1 record to it, the one that we declared was in fact not a duplicate, and you can see its file path is here now. And it still has a unique file name because, so in other words, we didn't, even though it kind of matched the one here above it, we were still giving it a unique file name because of that batch ID and because that counter had increased for our second batch. So that way we make sure we keep all of our files unique in the output folder, and we're always comparing them again and again. So it's a kind of a complicated concept in terms of how duplicate IDs work, but it's actually a pretty simple solution that we've found here. So I hope this video has proved useful. We'll certainly talk to you in the next one. If you need any help, you can always reach out to us, or again, visit the wiki. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.